Swinging a drive. Right field and deep. Back goes Aquino. It's got a chance. Gone. Get out the tape measure. Long gone.
Fly the W!
Cubs fans, it's time to fly the W with Dustin Rhodes and Paul Crawly Gene.
This is season 4, episode 38 of the Fly the W podcast. Crawly, the Cubs continue to fall flat in Philly. Don't forget to listen, download, subscribe, most importantly, review the podcast. Follow on all the socials. I'm at Mully and Haw on X.
You can follow me at Crawly's Cubs on X, Blue Sky, and TikTok, and Crawly's Clubhouse on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. And you can email us with any thoughts, questions, comments at crawlysclubhouse@gmail.com. You know, Dustin, I mean, when you go 4-5 on a 9-game road trip, including a stop against the best team in baseball, I mean, I know people are frustrated today, but most of the time you're going to take that, right?
I guess, you know, again, I am a prisoner of the moment, as they like to say on the radio. I live and die with each one of these games like it is a Bears game. Now, there are only 18 of those, and there are 162 at least baseball games. But again, what we do, you live and die with each day. Now, again, my initial reaction to the lineup today, we'll just get right into that right now. We'll get into it more later. You know, I was upset. I was disappointed. Now, again, I get it. PCA needs to have a day off. No doubt about that. But the initial reaction was, do I need Brujan and Justin Turner in the lineup on the same day? I thought that if anything, I thought Kyle Tucker maybe was the guy that should have at least gotten off his feet and DH today. So I just had issues with that lineup. The pitcher that pitched today for the Phillies is a guy who is solid. He's a solid baseball player, but lately has given up a bunch of hits. You know, and again, PCA needed a day off. They lost the game, obviously, by the headline. They didn't come through it. You and I both predicted 2 out of 3. I think I guilted you into the 2 out of 3. I think you wanted to go 1 of 3. I said 2 of 3, and I kind of twisted your arm. But it's disappointing. But sure, I mean, they haven't been swept this year, right? Unless I missed something. They've not been swept.
I don't recall it right now, no.
Right. I mean, they've definitely lost some series, but now they've lost back-to-back series. They're kind of living and dying with the home run ball. It's a home run or nothing. So, I mean, these are things, listen, we worry. That's what we do. But nothing to get sick over. They're coming home for a 10, right, Crawly? A 10-game homestand, beginning with the Pirates on Thursday night, and then a Friday game, a Saturday game, a Sunday day game. I'm sure you're going to a handful of these. So let's just get right after it. Let's recap this one. Game number 1, Matthew Boyd, Zach Wheeler. And this was the pitching matchup that it was on paper. It lived up to that hype.
You know, the thing too, Dustin, for me, this is the game that pissed me more off than today.
Okay.
I was more mad about this game than I was about the game today. And you know, the Cubs have had to face a lot of tough pitchers lately. Add Zach Wheeler to the mix. And it's just another poor Cubs performance by the offense. Wheeler shut the Cubs down. He only gave up 1 run on 3 hits, 1 walk, and 7 Ks. Starts out good, right? Kyle Tucker hits a first-inning home run, and you're going, all right, maybe we got this guy.
Doesn't get much better than that.
But then, you know, that was it. He shut him down. Carson Kelly reached on an error in the 2nd inning. Tucker walked in the 3rd. Shaw singled in the 5th. All happened with 2 outs. They had a little bit of a chance. The final hit came against Wheeler in the 6th when Seiya hit a 1-out single, and he advanced to 2nd with 2 outs on a wild pitch, but Dansby flied out to end the threat. But only 1 runner in scoring position against Wheeler the whole night. I mean, that's just really not going to do it.
No, they did run up his pitch count, so they were able to get him out of there probably a little earlier than they had hoped to do. But obviously, just by running the pitch count up wasn't enough to get to him personally.
Right. And so on the flip side, Matt Boyd was able to pitch 6 innings and gave up 2 runs, but only 1 of them were earned. But that was, you know, the unearned run was his fault too. But he was consistently in and out of the danger, right? Bottom of the 2nd, Edmundo Sosa got thrown out by Kyle Tucker trying to stretch a single into a double. Bottom of the 3rd, Trey Turner singles, but he gets picked off by Boyd. But the Phillies were able to break through in the bottom of the 4th, and it all gets started with a leadoff walk by Kyle Schwarber. That always seems to be trouble, and that was followed up by back-to-back singles to load the bases, no out. JT Realmuto would hit one to Matt Shaw, who tried to turn the 5-4-3 double play, but Real Muto beats it out. A run scores, game's tied at 1. But with runners still at the corner and 1 out, Boyd was able to get Edmundo Sosa at the ground into a 6-4-3 double play to end the threat. So it looked like it was going to be maximum damage, and they were able to get out of it with the tie game, right?
Yep, that looked like it, yeah.
Now the Phillies would take the lead in the bottom of the 5th when Otto Kemp hit a leadoff single. And Matt Boyd, again, he has a good pickoff move, but he tried to pick him off. He threw it into right field, allowing Kemp to reach third. He scored on a Weston Wilson single to put the Phillies up 2-0. So Boyd gave up 2 hits, 1 earned. The unearned run was.
Let's get into that. All right, you hit another nerve here, Crawly. You hit another nerve. What did you say his line was? Can you repeat that for the audience and for me?
Are we talking about
Matthew Boyd's pitching line, Crawly? What was Matthew?
2
Boyd's
runs,
final?
right?
Okay. Yeah.
All unearned. He gave up 8 hits, 2 walks, but he did not strike out a single batter.
All right. Well, I thought it was 1 earned run. So the
one earned run.
Yeah, 1 earned run. So
right.
1 earned, 1 unearned. But the reason that runner ended up scoring was because he threw a bad ball to Michael Busch.
Right.
So that should be charged to him. That's the way I look at it. Yeah. That should not be. So the baseball gods, the rules need to change, because that's a really dumb rule. That's on him. He should have to wear it.
Yeah, and it definitely was frustrating here. And so when we get into the 8th inning, you're just wondering if the Cubs are going to be able to come back. Matt Strom's in the game. He gets the first out, but then Ian Happ hits a no-doubter into the left field seats that traveled 424 feet. Right. And so you're looking at the Phillies and being like, man, all those opportunities that they blew, this is a chance the Cubs to come back and steal one. Bottom of the 9th, Brad Keller's on the mound. Leadoff hitter Otto Kemp hits a funky ball, spinning between Keller and Carson Kelly. What's his name? Michael Busch crashed on it. Kelly picks it up, but Kemp is running on the grass the entire time, impeding Kelly's throwing lane. Counsell comes out to argue. He's tossed Dustin for the 2nd game in a row. First time in his career that's happened. I can't even remember the last time a Cubs manager got thrown out 2 games in a row.
I mean, I won't say you. I have been harping for quite a while, ever since Craig Counsell became the skipper of our favorite baseball team, that he needed to show a little bit more life, that he needed to come out of the dugout, stop leaning on his arm, and get after some people just a little bit. And he did do that. And so I do want to give him a tip of the cap for doing that. It was about damn time.
Well, we get to the top of the 10th, some free baseball, and Nico is the Manfred man. Cubs can't even advance him to 3rd. Phillies have the opportunity to walk it off in the 10th. Daniel Palencia is on the mound. Trey Turner's the Manfred man. Palencia intentionally walks Kyle Schwarber, but Alec Bohm grounds into a 5-3 double play, and Castellanos grounds out to Shaw. The Cubs survive, move to the 11th. It totally, at that point, to me, I'm thinking the momentum's all the Cubs' direction now, right?
Uh-huh.
And Kyle Tucker's the Manfred man. Suzuki flies out, but PCA, who had a really tough night, doubles, and the Cubs take a 3-2 lead. And Pete's dancing at second. That causes Carlos Hernandez to spike a ball past the catcher. He moves to 3rd, but in a critical at bat, runner at 3rd, 1 out, Dansby Swanson strikes out. He has to make contact.
At least make contact, right? At least make contact.
Has to make contact. He strikes out, and then Busch grounds out. And you just kind of felt that wasted opportunity would come back to bite him. Bottom of the 11th, Nick Castellanos, the Manfred man. First batter, JT Realmuto singles to tie it. And then Dustin, Bryson Stott and Otto Kemp both lay down perfect bunts. You couldn't have rolled it out there any better. And that just shows how desperate the Phillies were. They didn't even feel confident to get hits. They just wanted bunts. They were bunting all over the place in this game.
Yeah.
And, Brandon Marsh would single to walk it off. That was the 2nd walk-off against the Cubs this season. But, Dustin, it was a miracle this game was so close. And the fact the Cubs actually had a lead in the 11th. They were out-hit 16-5.
Yeah, that's crazy. 16 hits is a lot of hits, right?
Right. And they had 19 base runners to the Cubs' 8. So nearly double. And there was at least 1 base runner that reached every inning that Boyd was in the game. The Phillies had a base runner on in all 11 innings of the games.
And wasn't there something with the leadoff hitter too, right? The leadoff hitter, like 5 or 6 consecutive innings, the leadoff
from
hitter
the 4th to the 11th inning, they had the leadoff hitter on.
Yeah, and that's total doom for anybody, right? That's a total dooming stat. Yeah,
they were 5 for 16 with runners in scoring position, but 4 of those hits, Dustin, came in the 11th. So from the 1st to the 10th inning, the Phillies were 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position. yet they snap a 5-game losing streak. And Dustin, like I said, I was angry after this one.
Yeah, I understand why. I understand why. And then how about the fact, like, no bunts, and they score run, they get 2 hits on bunts that were supposed to be sacrifices.
Right.
Cubs can't turn those into outs, right? That's
well, I mean, they were perfect bunts. They were perfect bunts. They couldn't
they were well executed.
They
were well executed, but I mean, they were trying, but I guess the point is they were trying to give the Cubs an out.
Right. And for me, the Phillies were trying to give this game to the Cubs and they wouldn't take it.
I mean, when you can keep it that close against Wheeler, you got to take that one, right? You have to take that one when you had Wheeler, not Wheeler himself, but a game that was started by Wheeler, on the ropes. You needed to take that one. All right. So that's game number 1. Game number 2, Colin Ray versus Mick Abel.
Yeah. Some fireworks early for both teams as the wind was blowing from left to right, 12 miles an hour. Cubs strike first in the second inning. Dansby Swanson leads off the second inning with a solo home run. Bill strike back at the bottom of the inning, though. JT Realmuto singles and Max Kepler got one that the wind just kept pushing this thing out, puts the Phillies up 2-1. Top of the third, Ian Happ, a solo home run in the third. 2 games in a row for Ian with a homer to tie it at 2.
He's on a heater.
Top of the fourth, Michael Busch joins the homer party. His solo home run puts the Cubs up 3-2. Unfortunately for the Cubs, Colin Ray is coming back down to earth. He was getting hit hard and had to throw a lot of stressful pitches. Bottom of the 5th, he gives up a leadoff double to Brandon Marsh, a single to Trey Turner, who would steal second before striking out Kyle Schwarber for the 3rd time in the game to end his night. Ryan Brazier came out of the pen and gave up a 2-run single to Alex Bohm before striking out Castellanos and Bryson Stott to end the inning. For Ray, he would only go 4 1/3 innings, give up 4 runs on 7 hits. He didn't walk anyone. He struck out 5, but 3 of those 5 strikeouts were to Schwarber. So again, we will have a report for Shota, and so we got to see Ray and we got to see Brown back-to-back games. We'll have to talk about this.
Were you a little bit surprised that Ray didn't have the opener this time around?
No, I'm not. I don't think it's something they want to do. Maybe it's something to change it up, but I wasn't surprised, no.
Okay. I will admit that I was a bit surprised. He was okay, right? He was okay. I think the most obvious person that you would move to the bullpen right now when and if Shota Imanaga returns. I mean, what the wild world of sports is going on there? That thing's taken way longer than I thought it would. But right now I'd move Colin Ray to the bullpen.
Right. And so we get to the top of the 6th, 1 out. Matt Shaw singles to left. Reese McGuire grounded one to second baseman Bryson Stott, who tries to start the 4-6-3 double play. But hats off to McGuire, hustling, respecting 90. It doesn't get turned. And so he's on first now. And that was huge as Ian Happ, who homered early in the game, hits a 2-run homer to put the Cubs back up 5-4. The Cubs were able to put some distance between themselves and the Phillies in the 8th. Nico singled, Reese McGuire doubled, Happ walks, and then Tucker and Suzuki single to give the Cub an 8-4 lead. The Cubs hit 3 home runs off Abel. Happ hit a 2-run bomb off Taijuan Walker, who's now pitching out of the pen. He started last time the Cubs saw him. That's 3 in the 8th to put this one away. Everyone except PCA had at least 1 hit. Happ
How about that, huh? That's kind of interesting. Everybody but PCA had a hit.
And again, I think that had a lot to do with the lineup today. I know
that's a good point. That's a good point. Some people also were speculating that he had a little bit of a tantrum at one point, and maybe it was a little bit of a, we don't act like that around here.
Pete always has a tantrum, and again, they're letting Pete be Pete. You watch it every time, he grounds out or something. I can easily hear the audible swears when he screws up. I see him throw the bat. That's Pete being Pete. You know what I mean? You're going to get the good and the bad. Yep. You're going to get the fun stuff. He's good. That's just him. I don't think it had anything to do other than a young guy who has not had a day off, and they just finished they're finishing up a 13-game stretch.
Yeah, listen, he was due, no doubt. Right. He was due for one.
Hats off to the Cubs bullpen that stopped the bleeding. Brazier, Thielbar, Keller, Presley, and Flexen covered 4 2/3 inning. Brazier gave up the hit, but the runs were charged to Ray. But after that, the Phillies didn't score another run. I thought they did a great job. And again, they've done a great job this whole month, in the last month.
Yep, absolutely right.
185 ERA.
They're not a bad, the Phillies are not a bad team. So this isn't not a terrible series loss by any stretch of the imagination. All right, you ready to move into the game that we just watched a few hours ago at this point?
I guess we must, certainly, huh? Right. I know I emailed you, texted you right away when this lineup came up. I said, Happ, Tucker, Suzuki, Swanson, Kelly, Turner, Horner, Shaw, Bruhan.
Kelly batting a little too high in the order, maybe.
But you're not going to put both him and Bruhan at the bottom and let the pitcher get through that. That's the problem you have in that situation with Bruhan starting. But it was we saw the best of Ben Brown, and we were hoping to see that he would bounce back against the Phillies. The Phillies really knocked him around last time. Well, they knocked him around this time too. It started bad. First inning, right? Trey Turner singles on a ground ball to Ian Happ. But this is what we talked about. At the first at bat, Trey Turner, 2-0. What are you going to throw him? You're going to throw him one right down the middle, right? You can't, and that's the stuff we talked about with Ben Brown, is getting ahead of the hitters. And so he's at 2-0, and he lays a cookie right down to Turner, and then Kyle Schwarber walks, and now you got 2 on, and he gets 2 outs, and you're saying to yourself, okay, maybe he's going to get out of this, but then he gives up a double to Max Kepler, and then to make it a 2-0 Phillies lead. And then JT Realmuto, he's still just a great player. He singled to make it 3-0. And so you're down early, okay? And then you get into the third inning, and the Kyle Schwarber, who hadn't had a hit the entire first 2 series.
Wow, really quiet, huh? Real quiet until.
Boom goes the dynamite. Home run number 21, Dustin. 431 feet, nearly 110 miles per hour on the bat. Dustin, people, there are people that just sit there and like, well, look at his average. I watched him this whole series, Dustin, and yeah, he doesn't hit for average, but his on base is just unreal. Every time he's up, he is
he works a count.
Oh my God, yep. And so he was just really, I thought he did really, really well all season. It's just frustrated. And then of course we have Nick Castellanos, who had a triple. He should have been running a little bit harder on that, and that ends up costing them a run. And then the Cubs answer in the 4th inning on a Nico Horner double to make it 4-1. But then again, trouble for Ben Brown. A single gives another bunt that's going to move Otto Kemp. And then you have Trey Turner, who doubles, and then Alex Boehm, who had a great series, single to make it 6-1.
He had a really nice series. You're right. Series by him.
He did. And at this point, now you're telling Brown you're going to eat some innings, right? So Brown goes 5 2/3, gave up 6 runs, 8 hits, 3 walks, 5 Ks. Just wasn't, again, falling behind, not getting strike one, not being aggressive. And I don't know. Sometimes guys just have trouble against certain teams. We talked about Colin Ray and both Matt Boyd having trouble.
Well, that's his former team. That's his former team, right?
Right. The Dave Robertson trade.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was frustrating. And then we know Jesus Luzardo is a really good pitcher that had 2 bad outings. He did not have a bad outing this time. He always dominates the Cubs. He went 6 innings, gave up 1 run on 5 hits. Cubs got 1 more run later on in the game in the 8th inning. But they were never really in this one.
No. They were not in this one. So, disappointing day, but sometimes you just got to gulp and okay, a little disappointed in the lineup, but I'd much rather have PCA having a seat at home versus having a seat at home in front of the Wrigley faithful. So that makes some sense as well, right?
And I want Cub things to keep some stuff in mind. They have faced a gauntlet of really good pitchers.
Oh my gosh.
This is the 2025 top pitchers right now rankings. And they got Tariq Skubal at 1, Skenes 2, who we're going to see on.
Well, he comes on Friday, right?
Yeah,
Skenes on
Friday.
No.
And then you have on this list Mackenzie Gore, who they faced on this road trip. You have Andrew Abbott, who they've recently seen. Jack Flaherty's had a great season. They have faced some really, really tough pitching. And again, 4 and 5 on a road trip, including having to face Detroit. And again, a lot of these games were just down to minute little things, that home run that didn't go out for that first game in Detroit, or not able to, get a PCA in with 1 out from third in the 11th inning against the Phillies. These were little things. It wasn't like the Cubs looked like they were outclassed. They looked like a team that was struggling against some really good pitching, and they have to get back to finding ways to grind at bats, get these guys out, use their running game, do all those things to hopefully get back and get on track. Especially they're coming back home against the Pirates, and again, you got a tough pitcher in Paul Skenes. But when we go through segment 3 and take a look at the preview, this should be an opportunity for the Cubs to score runs.
This is the Fly the W podcast, episode 38 of season number 4. The Cubs continue to fall flat, fall short, Crawly, in Philadelphia. Don't forget to listen, down the review, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. If you want to leave a 5-star review, we'd be happy to take it. Email us, crawlysclubhouse@gmail.com, and you can watch us, as some of you are right now, on the Crawly's Clubhouse YouTube page. All right, Crawly. So even with the loss, I was checking the scores as this was going on. Decent news, because both the Brewers and the Cardinals played day baseball, and they both also lost.
All righty. So if we're taking a look here, then the Cubs, this should look right. If you double check for me, Dustin, here, I got the Cubs 41-27. 5-5 in their last 10. Cardinals 36-31. So they're 4.5 back, but they're in a 3-game losing streak. And then
the Cardinals are 5
games back. All right. So that's a 4-game losing streak.
Yep. 5 games back. They lost today as well. So no blood, right? The Cubs, the Cardinals, and the Brewers all lost. So
the Brewers would be 6 back then. Yeah.
They're 5.5. 5.5.
5.5 for the Brewers.
Yeah, so nothing changed. Everything stayed exactly as it was. Yeah, Cubs are 5-5, Cardinals 3-7, Brewers 5-5 in their last 10.
All right, so it gets a little bit interesting here, but when we take a look at the power rankings, they did come out earlier this week.
The good old power rankings. Well, earlier, right? This is obviously before the Phillies series.
The Phillies series. So keep in mind, this was right around the time when the Cubs had just played the Detroit Tigers. And so I think that there was a lot of people that thought that series was really fun. A lot of people enjoyed it. We talked about like my trip to Detroit. And so when we look at the power rankings here, let me just double check and make sure we're good here. When we look at the power rankings right here for the week, you could see all the different teams and what they're doing right here. The 10 was the Cardinals, and my guess is they're going to fall a little bit further after this last series. The Giants went from 10 to 9. The Astros jumped up from 13 to 8, so big jump for the Astros. For the Padres, they stayed at 7. The Phillies dropped to number 6 after losing, getting swept by the Pirates. And I think that's what's so frustrating, Dustin, is that, they were coming off getting swept by the Pirates. They had no Bryce Harper. They had no Aaron Nola. And again, 5 consecutive series lost to the Phillies for the Cubs.
Yeah.
Dodgers dropped from 2 to 5. And then the Yankees went from 6 to 4. And then the Mets jumped up from 5 to 3. The Cubs went from 3 to 2 after that amazing series in Detroit. And then the Tigers again at number 1. So, it'll be interesting to see how it all kind of plays out later on. And hopefully the Cubs don't lose too much ground in the power rankings. But again, they don't mean too much in the big scheme of things. It's just fun to look at.
All right, so we got some injury updates on a couple of pitchers, Shota Imanaga and Porter Hodge.
You were worried about Shota Imanaga. I know that. He struck out 4 in 2 innings, 25 pitches at rookie level, Arizona Complex League game on June 9th. He is going to throw another Arizona Complex League game on Saturday with the goal of trying to hit 3 innings, 50 to 55 pitches. Now, Dustin, if that all goes well, 50 to 55 pitches, nothing in the leg, nothing in the arm, everybody's feeling all right, then the next step would be a trip to AAA Iowa. So those of you listening that are around AAA, around Iowa, it might be a fun trip to go out there and see Shota at Principal Park.
Nice. Very nice. And then Porter Hodge.
Yeah, he had a 20 pitch.
He might be here pretty soon, I'm thinking.
He had a 20-pitch mound session on June 10th at AAA. He's set to begin a minor league rehab assignment this weekend.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to have at least a couple before making his way.
Maybe you see him against the Mariners at the end of the homestand, perhaps?
Yeah, I think it's possible.
All right, little Jed Hoyer audio we want to share from our guy John Heyman and Joel Sherman talking about the Cubs and some interesting things coming their way, potentially. Jed Hoyer, a guest on their podcast, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Jed's not getting my emails or what. We'd love to have him on and talk. We'd be nice, right? There was a couple things that kind of really stood out, and I think this is important to kind of bring about, but he was talking about what the National League, and especially the National League Central, looked like.
I think the National League is just really good. I think obviously the Mets and the Dodgers are excellent. They're really well run, and they have huge resources, and I think they use those resources well. So those teams are both super talented and super deep, and they're not going to go anywhere. There's 4 teams in the NL West I think are really good teams. I know Arizona has stumbled a little bit, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised to see them catch fire. And then I think on the East, Philly has stumbled recently, but they're a very good team. And then the Braves, I would be shocked if they don't make a pretty big comeback here. They're too talented. And then our division, the Brewers are always there. They do a fantastic job. They're going to always be in the race. I think the Cardinals play unbelievable defense, and I think their defense and their good young players have really taken a step forward. And the Reds have an excellent starting rotation. So the National League is just so deep. I feel like every series you're playing, with really some small exceptions, are really competitive, and it feels like the wild cards in the NL will be a pretty high number, I think, to get there. Whereas I'm not sure that number is quite as high in the American League, to be honest.
Dustin, it's funny because whenever we do these previews and I look at the numbers and all this stuff, I'm saying to myself, man, even the bad teams have some really good players. And when you take a look at the NL Central, you have 4 teams, Dustin, over 500. 4 teams.
Yep.
Only the Pirates are not. And then when you kind of go down here, I don't know, Dustin, if you think the Braves are going to make a comeback. I know Chris Sale's a name that Cub fans are kind of watching really closely. But if you take a look at this, the Pirates, I don't know. The Braves, to me, I don't think. 14 games back's a lot, 9.5 in the wild card. But Miami's obviously out of it, and the Rockies are out of it. And so when you take a look at it, everyone else is really kind of in it, right? And so who's going to be giving up players?
Who are the sellers here, right? Who are the sellers?
Right. When I take a look at this team, legitimately, there's maybe 5-6 teams that are sellers, and the other 24 teams are still in this thing. The teams that are selling are going to be in the cat seat, and it's going to take a whole boatload to pry something away.
Yep, somebody's going to have to overpay. There is no doubt about that, Crawly. You have to overpay. Hopefully the Cubs won't have to overpay, but I do think they need to add, right? They're going to have to do some additions. Recommend, if you have the time, after you finish our podcast, go over to Joel Sherman and John Heyman's podcast. Listen to President of Baseball Ops, Jed Hoyer.
Well, here's what Jed had to say.
You got another one you want to play?
Oh, yeah. I got a couple here. Jed ends up saying a little about what he is going for here.
Yeah, I think barring injury, there's probably some small things on the offensive side, but really I think that our position playing group has been really good. I think that the thing that we've done probably better than anything offensively is just the depth we have, top to bottom. I think we're getting production, kind of both offensively and defensively from all our spots, and that's made a huge difference. So I think, as I think about it, I think that pitching is the likely direction we would take if we were adding.
Right. I don't think but for me, Dustin, like I said, with everything that's going to take to pry that pitching away, that's why I'm one of those guys that will not give up on Ben Brown. I know people get irritated with me about it, and that's fine. I have people every time I tweet something about Ben, he's not a starter. Yes, he is. We've seen what he is at his best. Now we just got to get the best more consistently. Okay.
Yep, more consistently. That's a good way to look at it.
But if you can, I know what Colin Ray is. He's not a number 1 front end starter. Never has been. Never will be. Ben Brown, we don't know that. And for those that just write off Ben so quickly, do me a favor. Go to Baseball Reference and take a look at Greg Maddux, 1986, 1987. Tell me how those 2 years went for him. Don't forget Ben Brown. This is right now technically his first full season.
Yeah, he's a young man. He's a young man. No doubt he's a young man.
Relax. Let's see what happens. I like that we have a couple guys. This is what Jed had to say about Craig Counsell.
I do think that the second year, this provides comfort. I think that's, he's more comfortable here. It's not everything new. It's not about him, which I think, in his, how he is as a person, he doesn't want that. So I think the second year has definitely been more comfortable. But, in a lot of ways, I give him a lot of credit last year. Roughly this time of year last year, like we really struggled for about 6 weeks. We couldn't hit. Our bullpen was blowing games. We ended up falling to like 9 under. And from that point, we really dug out and played really good baseball. Unfortunately, in the National League last year, that the Padres, Diamondbacks, Mets just didn't lose during that period. And so we weren't able to get all the way back there. But I thought he showed a really steady hand last year when we fell down and then ended up playing really well for the last kind of 3.5 months of the season. And I think that's carried over to this year. So I think his comfort is better, but I also think he's an excellent manager. He makes good decisions in games. I think he handles the clubhouse exceptionally well. I mean, he's been fantastic for us. I know last year didn't go exactly as we hoped, but I thought the things he showed in the second half were really excellent. And like I said, have led into this part of the first part of this year.
I got to say, I've always liked Craig Counsell, always from afar when he was in Milwaukee. And here's the thing. He's socially awkward, Dustin. That's really the best way to describe him. And so, when we think about all the people that we love, all the Chicago coaches, whether you're talking about Ditka, whether you're talking about Joe Madden, whether you're talking about Ozzie Guillen, we like guys that are funny, that have those personalities, that make for great sports radio podcasting content. That's just not Craig Counsell. He's kind of weird when he talks. He has a little tick. I don't know if you ever hear him where he goes, he makes like this little like noise before he talks all the time. He pauses before he says things. He doesn't give you anything really interesting. But I think he is a really good coach, and I think this team is better off for having him. And I'm interested to see where this is going to go. Now, obviously, being on a podcast with two New York guys rather than two Chicago guys, but being on a podcast with two New York guys, of course, they're going to ask about PCA. And I think, Dustin, with all the national headlines that PCA is getting, you got to be careful when you're trying to rewrite history a little bit in the narrative on this. And I think Jed did a good job explaining it. This first clip talks about the deal and how it kind of came together for PCA.
How did you get the co-NL MVP candidate for a rental?
Yeah, I mean, probably good fortune, honestly. Like, I think, the Mets took a bunch of guys off the table right away. Matt Allen was off the table. Alvarez was off the table. I'm pretty sure Beatty was off the table. Vientos was a guy that was kind of discussed a little bit, but it was clear they didn't want to part with him. And, at the time, I think Pete played like 6 games in low A and got hurt. And he was sort of out of sight, out of mind, I believe. When looking back, that I think his injury, he didn't allow him to perform. And therefore, I think he became, a guy they were willing to trade in that deal. So I think it was good fortune for us that they did take some really good players off the table that are, most of those guys are helping the Mets right now. But I think Pete's injury allowed that to happen, and it worked out really well for us.
Well, now, again, if you're telling me you knew that PCA in 2021 with 6 games under his belt was going to turn out the way he does, then I'm going to call BS on that. Nobody knew that.
Jed never, Jed was actually handled that very well.
Right.
We talked about luck being part of the equation, right?
Right. And when you want to get to the postseason, you have to give something up. And there were certain guys that were off the table. And that happened. And so the Cubs lucked out, but it wasn't like Jed fleeced them or something like that. It was a rental in Javi Baez and Trevor Williams, but you're trying to make the postseason in the Mets in 2021. And so the Cubs are sitting there and, okay, how about Brett Beatty? No. Okay. How about this? How about Mark Vientos? No. All right. And again, these are guys that are on the major league roster as well. And again, I'm not going to try to get overhyped about the PCA thing because, again, it's a full season. It's a hard season. It's a long season. They're going to still continue to look for ways to get him out. And I don't like him. I liked him better batting 6th, 7th than I do batting 4th. I've heard, I know Mark DeRosa was on MLB Network today talking about having him lead off. I don't want him anywhere near lead off. I would like him to be at 6, 7, right around where Nico is. That to me is ideal. And I'm not going to get too crazy and put too much on this kid. And this is what Jed had to say about the power that PCA is showing.
I think the Mets for sure didn't see the power coming.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think to a person, we felt like he was in for some big things this year. I think the way he played the second half of last year was really exceptional. And he has a really great floor as a player with his defense and with his base running. But I'll admit, I thought he was going to perform better offensively. I did not expect him to have 17 home runs right now. And also the way he's hitting them, these are not wall scrapers. He's hitting balls, well out. So he's an exceptional athlete. And I think sometimes, those exceptional athletes can kind of outkick your expectations to a certain extent. And he's certainly doing that from the power standpoint.
Like you said, a really good interview, Dustin, and check it out at the New York Post. I know that you talk to John Heyman weekly on the Mullion Hall show.
Great guy. Definitely check him out. Really, really good guy. This is the Fly the W podcast. It is season number 4, Crawly. It is episode number 38, and the Cubs, Crawly, they continue to fall flat in Philly. They dropped 2 out of 3 today, the latest loss. So they're on the big bird, air rickets, if you will, flying back home, and they are going to take on the Pirates next. So the last time the Cubs and Pirates played, Crawly, how did things go?
Yeah, that was the end of April, early May. The Cubs took 2 of 3 in Pittsburgh. Game 1, the Cubs hit 4 home runs off Andrew Heaney and the pen, and Shota Imanaga pitched 5 shutout innings. In the second game, the Cubs were trailing 2-0. They scored 3 in the 5th to take the lead, but old Andrew McCutchen hit a 2-run double in the bottom of the 7th. Pirates took this one 4-2. Remember, that's the one where that fan fell out of the stands right there.
Oh,
right?
Gosh, yeah, awful.
And game 3, the Cubs were down 2-0 with Paul Skenes on the mound. Looks like it's over, but in the top of the 5th, Dansby Swanson, Kyle Tucker, and Seiya Suzuki all hit solo home runs off Skenes, and the Cubs would score 8 unanswered runs to take the rubber game 8-3. I don't think Paul Skenes has probably ever given up 3 home runs in an inning at any level of baseball, much less at the major leagues.
Yeah.
Now, since the Cubs last played the Pirates, they struggled in the month of May. They went 10-18, but they've bounced back a little bit in June. They fired their manager. We talked about that. The Pirates have won 2 of their last 3 series they've played, including back-to-back series wins against the Phillies, who they swept, and the Marlins. So Pittsburgh is 28-41, like we talked about, 13.5 games back behind the Cubs, but they're 6-4 in their last 10, while the Cubs are 5-5. The Pirates are 19-19 at home, but a miserable 9-22 on the road and 16-33 against teams with the winning record. So hopefully, like I said, the Cubs can take advantage of them coming into
Right.
Wrigley.
That's what you got to do. You got to take advantage of this stuff when these things present themselves. No doubt about that. Ready for the tail of the tape, Crawly? There's the bell. There's the bell.
Now, when you take a look at this batting average, the Cubs are still 3rd at 258. Pirates 25th at 229. Slugging, the Cubs are 4th at 443, while the Pirates are 30th at 343.
Oof.
Runners in scoring position, 291, second, while the Pirates are 229, which is 3rd in baseball. And Dustin, all of that is all well and good. You know, when you look at that, that's how it looks over the course of this season so far.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're taking a look at what have you done for me lately, Dustin, which I know, is something that you are.
Prisoner of the moment.
Prisoner. The funny thing is I'm going to the game on Tuesday with my buddy Meatball Mike, who very much views baseball the same kind of prism that you do. And
Attaboy Mike.
Meatball Mike. And so it's going to be, I literally got a text today. Ben Brown's not a starter. I'm going, oh, Jesus. But, if you're just looking at the last 7 days, right? If you just look at the last week, the Pirates are 15th with an average of 252. When you look at the Cubs, they're 20th at 240 in the last week. So what have you done for me lately? Now, as far as pitching is concerned, the Pirates have better starting pitching than the Cubs. They have a 3.58 starter ERA.
Which is they got this guy named Paul Skenes, Crawly. They got that Paul Skenes guy.
It helps. And the Cubs starting pitcher ERA didn't help today with Ben Brown. They're 18th with an ERA of 4. But their bullpens are exactly the same as far as whip at 120.
Isn't that amazing? That's pretty amazing.
11th. And then in defense, you take a look at the fielding. Cubs are 3rd with 36 defensive run saves, but the Pirates are no slouches either. They are 10th in baseball with 18 defensive run saves. So defensively, they're pretty even.
All right, this is one of your favorites, Crawly. This is a 4-gamer, right? We got a Thursday, we got a Friday, we got a Saturday, we got a Sunday. Let's start with the Thursday, and let's be pretty brisk here. Jameson Taillon versus Andrew Heaney, 7:05 start.
Yeah, that Taillon has been the rock so far this season, 6-3 with 13 games started. He has 5 quality starts in a row. And so I was there the other day on June 7th. He gave up only 1 run in 7 innings pitched against the Tigers. So JMO's 2-2 against his former team with a 4.55 ERA in 5 games started. Fam's had a lot of success against JMO. He's 9 for 24. And Jared Triolo's 4 for 8. But Andrew McCutchen 2 for 9 and O'Neill Cruz 0 for 11. JMO's had a lot more success, Dustin, at Wrigley than on the road. He's 2-1 at the friendly confines with a 2.70 ERA and 6 starts. Taillon has not faced the Pirates, though, this season. As far as the Buccos are concerned, they're throwing Andrew Heaney. We talked about before. He's a lefty who's 3-4 with a 3.24 ERA and 13 games started. He had a bad start on May 26th, giving up 5 runs to the Diamondbacks in 5 innings, but his last 2 starts, he's looked really good. On June 1st, he gave up 2 runs in 5 2/3 innings to work against the Padres. And on June 7th, he gave up 1 run in 6 innings against the Phillies, 2 good hitting teams. The Cubs saw Heaney on April 29th, scored 4 runs against him. Heaney's 0-2 lifetime against the Cubs with a 6.75 ERA. The only thing about that, Kyle Tucker's 1 for 15 against him, but the one hit was a homer at PNC. So hopefully take advantage of that one right there.
All right. How about the Cubs against this starter?
Yeah, game 2, Cade Horton versus Paul Skenes. This is going to be must TV. Woo! A battle of 2 former top prospects. This one, again, should be interesting. Cade is 3-1 with a 4.11 ERA in 6 games, 5 of those starts, 25 strikeouts in 30 2/3 innings. Cade had been pitching really well. We talked about that being a test in his last start against the Tigers. It was okay. He gave up 4 runs in 5 innings with 6 Ks and 2 walks. There was some bad luck sprinkled in there. This is going to be another big test against a pretty good team for Horton. The advantage for Cade is that none of the Pirates have seen him before. And hopefully the fact that he's going up against, Paul Skenes, who was the Pirates' #1 prospect, just like Cade was,
right?
It just kind of makes it interesting and maybe takes it up a little level. Sometimes these guys, they're not going to pretend like it's a big deal, but I know Ben Brown was jacked up to be going against Tariq Skubal. So maybe.
All right. And Cade Horton seems like the kind of guy that gets amped up for things like this. At least, is from my couch, right? I don't know the guy at all, but that's what he seems like, that type of guy.
Right. And we talked about the Cubs earlier facing a lot of aces: Andrew Abbott, Mackenzie Gore, Tariq Skubal, Zach Wheeler, Jesus Luzardo. And now you got Paul Skenes. He's a perfect example why you can't just look at wins and losses. Dustin, he has a losing record, 4-6. His ERA is 1.88. And he has a 0.84 whip in 14 games started with 92 strikeouts in 91 innings. I don't know who he made mad. His team doesn't score for him. On May 28th, he got the win. He went 6 2/3 scoreless, struck out 7. On June 3rd, he got the loss against the Astros. He gave up 1 run in 8 innings and struck out 8. And in the last start against the Phillies, he pitched 7 2/3 scoreless innings with 7 strikeouts. There's only been 1 game after opening day that Skenes has not pitched at least 6 innings. That one game, when he only pitched 5 innings against the Cubs.
Yeah.
Shut out before he gave up 3 solo home runs in the 5th. Skenes is 2-1 lifetime against the Cubs with a 2.88 ERA in 5 games started. But the Cubs all struggle against Skenes. Bush is 1 for 10, Happ 2 for 11. Skenes is going to use that 4-seamer, averages 98, split finger, and a slider.
I'm going to that game, Crawly. I'll be in the booth. I'm working that game, doing the pre and post.
I'm going to call
in. You got to tune in.
Game 3, Matt Boyd versus Michael Burrows. This is Saturday, 1:20. Boyd 5-3 with a 2.89 ERA in 13 games, started with 70 strikeouts and 74 2/3 innings. He's 5-0 at Wrigley, Dustin, with a 2.40 ERA and an 0-3 with 3.22 ERA on the road. But like Skenes, Boyd's just not getting a lot of offensive support. There's been only 1 game this entire season where he's given up more than 3 runs. On May 26th, he pitched 6 scoreless innings against the Rockies. On June 4th, he took the loss, giving up 2 runs and 7 1/3 and in his last start against the Phillies, he gave up 1 run in 6 innings and got the no decision. Boyd has struggled against the Pirates in his career. He's 0-3 in 6 games, started with a 6.53 ERA. But, that's earlier in his career. Not a lot of Pirates have more than 4 at-bats against Boyd. Andrew McCutcheon's 3 for 10. Isaiah Keener-Falefa is 2 for 9. And Brian Reynolds is 2 for 8. On the flip side, you got Michael Burrows pitching for the Pirates. He's a 25-year-old righty, 11-round draft pick for the Pirates in 2018. He appeared in only 1 game in 2024. He started the season in AAA, called up on April 24th, sent down a couple days later, and was recalled on May 21st, and he's made 3 starts since then. On May 27th against the Diamondbacks, he gave up 5 runs, 4 earns in 3 1/3 innings. But on June 4th, he did much better. He pitched 5 1/3 shutout innings with 6 Ks against the Astros. In his last start against the Marlins, he gave up 2 runs, but only lasted 4 1/3 innings. This is his first start against the Cubs, and the only Cub who's seen him is John Birdie, who's 0-1 with a walk against him.
Well, not a whole lot there.
No.
Not a whole lot there.
No, Burrows features a 4-seamer, changeup, and slider.
Father's Day, Sunday. So happy Father's Day to all you dads out there. Hopefully you're going to get a lot of Cubs in your near future. Colin Ray back on the mound for the Cubs against Mitchell Keller.
Yeah, Ray is 4-2 with a 3.92 ERA in 14 games, 10 of those starts, 48 strikeouts, in 62 innings pitched. Rays 2-1 at Wrigley with a 3.67 ERA. It's been up and down for Colin. In April, he had an ERA of 1.17 in 3 starts. In May, he had a 5.61 ERA in 6 starts. And in June, his ERA is at 3.72 in 2 appearances. On May 30th, Ray gave up 6 runs in 5 2/3 innings against the Nationals. On June 5th, they used the opener, which you talked about. Came into the game in the second and pitched 5 1/3 shutout innings. In his last start against the Phillies, he gave up 4 runs in 4 1/3 innings. Ray is 3-3 lifetime against the Pirates with a 5.91 ERA in 8 games, 6 of those starts. He better look out for Brian Reynolds, who is 8 for 14 with 2 doubles and 2 home runs and 5 RBIs against him. Nick Gonzalez 4 for 8, but Andrew McCutchen is only 2 for 12 against him, and Jared Triolo 2 for 13. And then finally, Mitch Keller is 1-9 with a 4.15 ERA. Dustin, this is one of those where you can look at the win-loss record and it reflects the pitcher. Mm-hmm. It's been a rough season for Keller. On May 30th, he gave up 3 runs in 6 innings against the Padres. Got whacked around by the Astros on June 5th, giving up 6 runs in 6 1/3 innings against the Marlins. And on June 10th, he gave up 3 runs on 6 innings in his last start. Keller didn't face the Cubs last time they faced each other, but he's 5-5 lifetime against Chicago with a 4.91 ERA in 13 games, 12 of those starts. Ian Happ is 11 for 27. Seiya 5 for 10. Dansby's 4 for 15. Michael Busch may be sitting that day, though. He's 0 for 8 against.
Yeah, give him a day off. Give him another day off. Wait till you get to the bullpen, then have him pitch it for.
Right, but this is one where I would bet the over on.
All right, I like our Cub chances in this one. All right, time for hot and not, and I'm guessing the hot list is going to be short this time around after not the greatest series of offense anyway for the Cubs and Philly.
When I look at hot, I say, okay, you got to be over 300 to be a hot hitter, right?
Yep.
The only one that the Cubs have close is Matt Shaw, slashing 296, 321, 444. At least Ian Happ, he's batting 276, but he has 4 home runs and 8 RBIs.
Yeah, I'd say Ian Happ could be on this list.
Yeah,
he wouldn't be on the not. That's for sure.
No, but what worries me is that the rest of the team is struggling. Dansby Swanson's hitting 241 the last week. PCA 222. Nico 222. Kyle Tucker 192. Michael Busch 190. Carson Kelly 143. So you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys in your everyday lineup hitting under 250 for the last week.
It doesn't do you very good. So how about the Pirates? They're coming into town. I'm always worried about 2 guys specifically, especially when it's at Wrigley Field. Andrew McCutchen, it's always a guy you got to worry about. And then who's the young man from like the south suburbs?
No, he's no longer there. I know who you're
He's
talking
not there.
about. No, you don't have to worry about him.
He's out of the. He's not with the Pirates.
He's in the minor leagues.
Minor leagues. Wow,
Yeah.
that guy was like a club killer at Wrigley.
Jack Switzky.
Yes, that guy. Yes.
Yeah, no, he's out there. But you do
Andrew
have to watch.
McCutchen, yeah, he's always hot. He's always good.
Yeah, Adam Frazier 7 for his last 16. He's hitting 438. Jared Triolo 6 for his last 14, hitting 429. Andrew McCutchen 333, and Key Brian Hayes 7 for his last 22. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 everyday players that are hitting above 300 on the Pirates.
Yep.
Right, and so when you look at the not, hopefully they can stay not. Henry Davis, the catcher, he's 5 for his last 23. Brian Reynolds, their right fielder's 5 for his last 24. Spencer Horowitz, first baseman, he's 2 for his last 16, slashing 125, 222, 250. But this team is not really slugging. In the last week, the catcher, who's the coldest, has the most home runs with 2 home runs and 3 RBIs.
All right, 4-pack, Crawly. Let's do some predictions. I'll happily go first. I say Cubs take 3 of 4. I am worried about Friday.
Yeah, boy.
3 or 4. 3 or 4.
I know that's what you're saying. I'm not going to let you bully me this time. I'm going to look at this.
Well, 2 and 2 is no fair because it's a 4-game series, and that's part of why you hate 4-game series.
Right. I'll take 3 of 4 with game 2 being the one that you worry the most about.
Boy.
I want to see a win when I'm there on Thursday night with Meatball Mike. That is my hope right now. So that way I don't have to hear him giving me bad hot takes the whole time.
That's a wrap, Crawly. Don't forget to listen, download, review, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. You got a question? Hopefully Crawly or I or both of us have an answer. Email us, Crawly's Clubhouse, gmail.com, and you can watch us by subscribing to the Crawly's Clubhouse YouTube page. Thanks to those of you that are watching as we're doing this live.
Yeah, and absolutely, I hope to see some of you down at the old ballpark for some home cooking against the Buccos. Go Cubs!
It's all over.